Hello, my name is Joshua Mugabi. I welcome you to Diffusion and Osmosis, a self-assessment program. Container X and Y each hold 1 liter of air. X also contains 0.4 grams of a gas, and Y contains 0.6 grams of the same gas. The two containers are connected together as shown in the diagram. A. Which way will the gas diffuse? So we are having container X with 0.4 grams of a gas and container Y with 0.6 grams of the same gas. These two containers are brought together and connected like the way they are here. So the question is, which way will the gas diffuse? A. The gas will diffuse from Y to X. That is, from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. So the gas will diffuse from Y. It will come from Y going to X. Why? Because when you look at Y, has 6 grams. Whereas if you look at X, X has 0.4 grams. So that means that in Y, we have more concentration compared to X. Therefore, the gas will diffuse from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. That's why we say it will diffuse from Y going to X. Part B. After a long period of time, what will be the concentration of the gas, that is in grams per liter, in each container? Eventually, the gas will be evenly distributed between the two containers. So each one will contain 0.5 grams per liter. Because here we have the concentration of 0.6 and here we have a concentration of 0.4, when they are connected, we are saying that the gas will diffuse from Y going to X until an equilibrium is reached. When an equilibrium is reached, the gas in X will be equal to the gas in Y, and therefore all of them will be having 0.5 grams per liter. The diagram represents, known to scale, molecules of a salt dissolved in the bottom layer of water in a beaker. Make two similar diagrams to show the distribution of salt molecules. A. After a few minutes. B. After several hours. So we are having a diagram here with the salt at the bottom of the water. So they want us to draw two diagrams to show how the distribution of salt molecules will be after a few minutes. and then after several hours. You can pause and try to draw them. The salt molecules will move by diffusion till they are evenly distributed. So in part A, which we said after a few minutes, you will see that some of them will have moved up. But after several hours, you will see that they are evenly distributed throughout the water. So they will move by diffusion from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. When a cell is respiring aerobically, which two gases are likely to be diffusing in and out of the cell, and in which direction will they be diffusing? When a cell is respiring aerobically, oxygen will be diffusing into the cell and carbon dioxide will be diffusing out. For example, here we have a tissue cell. These are all cells and they are surrounded by a tissue fluid, and then this side we have the endothelium of a capillary. So you can see that carbon dioxide diffuses out from the tissue fluid because that's where the cells will produce and release their carbon dioxide to. Then it diffuses into the epithelium of the capillary, and you can see oxygen is moving from the endothelium of the capillary entering into the tissue fluid, from where it will diffuse into the cell. So we say that when a cell is respiring aerobically, meaning that it is using oxygen, therefore oxygen is going to diffuse into the cell. And by respiring, it means that it is breaking down food or biological molecules to give us a product which is carbon dioxide and which is a waste. Therefore, that one will diffuse out of the cell. The graph shows the concentration of a substance inside and outside a cell. A. If the substance is free to move by diffusion, which way will it move? Roman number 1. Inside the cell. Roman number 2. Between the cell and the medium or outside the cell. So we are having a graph here which shows the concentration of substances inside the cell and outside the cell. So they are asking us if the substances are free to move by diffusion, which way will they move? Inside the cell, you tell us how they will be moving here inside the cell. How will the substances be moving inside the cell? And part 2, between the cell and the medium or outside. How will substances be moving between the cell and the medium outside? You can pause and try to think about it. For part A, where we are saying inside the cell, and if you look here, you are going to see that this is inside our cell. This is inside our cell. And you can see that the concentration when you are moving from B, going to side C, you can see that the concentration goes on decreasing downwards. So which means towards side B, we have a high concentration, and towards side C there is low concentration. Therefore, here inside the cell, substances will diffuse from side B going to side C. That's how they are going to diffuse from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, that is in B. So inside the cell, the substance will diffuse from B to C, and that is down the concentration gradient. If you look at it, you will see that here we have the gradient moving from B going downwards towards C. So there is high concentration towards B than C. So substances will move from B going towards C. Part 2. Between the cell and the medium, or outside the cell. So what will happen between here, the cell, and then outside? From here you can see that the concentration of the substances outside the cell is lower compared to the concentration inside the cell. So we say if the cell membrane were freely permeable, meaning that can easily allow substances to go inside and outside, the substances would diffuse out of the cell from B to A. So if this membrane was freely permeable, substances will be moving from the cell going out of the cell. Why? Because its concentration inside is greater than that outside. So from here you can see that the concentration of substances inside the cell is higher compared to the concentration outside. So if this membrane is freely permeable and it can easily allow substances to pass through, then substances will be moving out of the cell and going outside of the cell, moving from the cell going outside. Part B. If after some hours the concentration has not changed, what assumption would you make about the movement of the substance across the cell membrane? So here what we are saying is that if this is what we started with in the beginning, and then we come after several hours and we find it is still the same way as it is, what assumptions would you make about the movement of the substance across the cell membrane? Pause and think about it. If there is no change in the concentration, you might assume that the substance was not free to diffuse across the cell membrane and was being taken up by active transport and diffusing across the cytoplasm by passive diffusion. So if we could find it like this, still like this, that means that this cell membrane is not freely permeable. It does not easily allow substances to cross. Therefore, it means that this concentration outside, or the substance outside, was being taken inside by active transport. And when it reached inside by active transport, then inside the cell it will now diffuse by passive diffusion from B to C. Which one of the following is the best definition of osmosis? 1. The movement of water from a concentrated solution to a dilute solution across a partially permeable membrane. 2. Movement of dissolved substances from a concentrated solution to a dilute solution across a partially permeable membrane. 3. The movement of water from a dilute solution to a concentrated solution across partially permeable membrane. 4. Uptake of water by living cells. The answer will be the best definition of osmosis is Roman number 3. The movement of water from a dilute solution to a concentrated solution across a partially permeable membrane. Let us look at this structure here. When you look at it, we have a partially permeable membrane here, separating two solutions. Is this solution this side and another solution behind the other side. Now we have these big particles that you are seeing here. These are solute molecules. And then we have these small blue particles. These are water molecules. So when you look at this solution this side, it has more of the water molecules and it has less of the solute molecules. And when you go beyond the other side, what you're going to see is that you have a lot of solute molecules the other side and few water molecules the other side. So which means that these water molecules are more this side and they are less the other side. And the solute molecules are more the other side and they are less this side. So that means that this side is less concentrated or dilute and the other side is concentrated. So water molecules will move from a dilute solution through the semi-permeable membrane or partially permeable membrane and cross and go to the other side where the solution is concentrated. B. Which of the statement is an acceptable description of diffusion? Which of the statement is an acceptable description of diffusion? 1. Movement of water from a concentrated solution to a dilute solution across a partially permeable membrane. 2. The movement of dissolved substances from a concentrated solution to a dilute solution across a partially permeable membrane. 3. Movement of water from a dilute solution to a concentrated solution across a partially permeable membrane. And 4. The uptake of water by living cells. Think about it, pause, and try to get the acceptable description of diffusion. An acceptable description of diffusion, at least in solutions, is Roman 2. The movement of substances from a concentrated solution to a dilute solution. Partially permeable membrane is not essential for diffusion to occur. For example, if you look at these particles here, these particles are highly concentrated this side and this side they are not there. So these particles will move from a region where they are highly concentrated and they will go to a region where their concentration is low until when they are evenly distributed throughout the solution. That is diffusion. The diagram shows a vessel which contains a concentrated and a dilute solution separated by a partially permeable membrane. Draw a similar diagram to show the liquid levels after an hour or two. So here we have our diagram where we have a vessel which contains a dilute solution this side and a concentrated solution on the other side, separated by a partially permeable membrane. So when you place it here and you leave it here for 2 or more hours, when you come back, what are you going to find? So they want us to draw similar diagrams to show the liquid level after an hour or two. You can pause and first draw. There will be a rise in the level on the right and corresponding fall on the left as water passes from the dilute to a concentrated solution by osmosis. So we shall find that this solution, which is dilute, will move to the other side where the solution is concentrated. So the water molecules will move from a region of dilute solution to a region of concentrated solution by osmosis. And there will be a rise on the other side where the concentration is high, and there will be a fall or a drop in the level where the concentration is low. Which statement is correct? A. A concentrated solution has high osmotic potential or water potential. B. A concentrated solution has low osmotic potential or water potential. A concentrated solution has low osmotic potential because it contains fewer free water molecules than a dilute solution. So when we go back to our diagram here, where we saw that we have solutes, few solutes this side, and we have more solutes the other side. Where we have few solutes, we have a lot of water molecules, which means that this side, it is a dilute solution. And the other side, where we have a lot of solute particles, the solution is concentrated. And where we have a concentrated solution, there is low osmotic potential because it contains effectively fewer free water molecules than in the dilute solution. So when you look at this side, which is concentrated, it has very few water molecules and there are very few free water molecules. Therefore, when you come this side, we have very many water molecules. Therefore, this one has got a lot of free water molecules. So, which of the statement is correct? A concentrated solution has a high osmotic potential, or a concentrated solution has a low osmotic potential? The correct statement is that a concentrated solution has low osmotic potential. Why? Because it has fewer free water molecules compared to the dilute solution. The drawing shows the outline of a human cell. Copy the drawing and make 2 further drawings to show how the cell would appear if it were to be immersed for a few minutes in a solution with a lower osmotic potential, that is lower water potential, than its own cytoplasm. B, higher osmotic potential, higher water potential than its own cytoplasm. Pause and think about it. Lower osmotic potential, lower water potential than its own cytoplasm. Lower osmotic potential. If the cell is dropped in the solution with lower osmotic potential, that means it has a low water potential. The cell is going to lose water to a more concentrated solution, and that's what is going to happen to the cell. Part B, when it is dropped in a higher osmotic potential or water potential than its own. At higher osmotic potential or water potential, the cell gains water from the dilute solution and it is going to swell. Why is it important that a cell membrane does not allow all dissolved substances to diffuse freely through it? If the cell membrane were freely permeable, meaning they could easily allow substances to move through, in and out, harmful substances could diffuse in, and useful substances could diffuse out. The concentration of the tissue fluid which bathes all cells in the body is kept more or less constant. Why is this important? So we have the tissue fluid here, which surrounds all the cells or bathes all the cells. It is always kept at more or less constant. And why is that one important? For it to be kept at a constant concentration. If the tissue fluid became more dilute, the cell would absorb water by osmosis and swell up. If the tissue fluid became more concentrated, the cells would lose water by osmosis, shrink, and become dehydrated, possibly to a point where metabolism was no longer possible. When meat is salted, bacteria cannot grow on it. Suggest a reason for this. The salt lowers the meat's osmotic potential so that water is withdrawn by osmosis from bacteria, cytoplasm, and so kills the bacteria. Thank you very much for participating in the Diffusion and Osmosis, a self-assessment program. Please do like, share, and subscribe.